Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. We are on week 2 of the pantry challenge, and this week we have some good meals. For the very first meal, we are going to make a stroganoff. I believe I showed you guys how to make this a while ago, but this is one of our favorite go-to ones. My son was still here for the holidays from school, and this is his favorite meal, so I wanted to make this for him while he was here. That is what we're having tonight. So what I did is just take a little bit of avocado oil and I just put it into a large heated skillet. I started out with 1 pound of ground turkey, but then decided that that 1 pound was going to be actually enough for all of us. So I upped it to 2 pounds of ground turkey. So I'm just gonna cook that until it is completely cooked through. And then I'm just gonna add some salt and pepper to that just to season the meat a little bit. I also chose to go ahead and add a little bit of granulated onion to that, just to add a little bit of onion flavor, but you could definitely omit that if you don't want the onion flavor in it. As you can see here, there's some different hands stirring. My daughter wanted to help out make supper this night, and I always encourage the kids to help make dinner because it is essential skill for them to learn how to make healthy food from scratch. I really am very passionate about teaching them how to do stuff from scratch because it's definitely the healthiest way to eat. So what we're gonna do is we are going to add some condensed cream of mushroom soup. Now I chose to make my own condensed cream of mushroom. I did leave a recipe linked for you guys in the video description just of how I make it. In last week's video, I actually showed you how I make my condensed soup mix, so you can reference there and I will leave that linked for you also. Next, we are going to add 1 15-ounce can of beef broth, 1 cup of milk, and then I just added a couple of my minced garlic. If you don't have fresh minced garlic, you can add 1 teaspoon of garlic powder to that. Once you get that all added together and all stirred and combined, then you're gonna come in and add 2.5 cups of a small uncooked pasta. I chose to use a rigatoni in this. Egg noodles work really well for that. You're gonna bring that to a boil. Once it is at a boil, you are going to reduce the heat to low and cover it and cook for about 15 to 20 minutes or until the pasta is tender. You want to come in and frequently stir this because of the fact that I'm using like a natural pasta. I'm not using just like a white enriched pasta. It tends to dry out a lot easier, so sometimes I need to add a little bit more liquid. So in fact, I did come in here and add probably about 1/2 cup more milk to this, and then the pasta finally cooked. It took about 25 minutes. After that is done cooking, take the lid off. You're going to add 1/2 cup of sour cream to this, and then if you have some fresh parsley, you can add about 2 tablespoons. I just used some dry parsley to this. Stir it, add salt and pepper to taste, and then there you have your stroganoff. I've also used ground beef with this. That is probably the traditional way to make it, and it's really good. But my son was super happy to have his favorite meal. For the next night, Steven told me that he was craving tacos, and so I checked in my fridge and I didn't have any tortillas, but I did have these crescent rolls that I had purchased from Trader Joe's for our New Year's Eve that we didn't end up eating. So being that we're in the pantry challenge, I am going to use what we have. So I went online and found this awesome recipe for a taco pie. So what I'm doing is taking 1 pound of ground beef and just cooking it until it is completely cooked through. You can also definitely use like a ground chicken in this or ground turkey. Anything like that would work really well. You want to have your oven preheated at 375 degrees. So in the recipe it says to unroll the dough, separate them into the 8 triangles, and then place it in an ungreased 9-inch square pan or 10-inch pie plate. So first of all, I attempted to fit them into this 9-inch cake pan and they were not fitting in there correctly. I think the Pillsbury ones are a little bit bigger than these Trader Joe's ones because they just weren't fitting. So I took them out of the square pan and put them into one of my Pyrex deep, I think it's a 9-inch or maybe it's an 8-inch pie plate or cake pan, and they seem to fit a little bit better. You want to make sure that they're all going up the sides. What you're doing is just creating a crust. Because these were smaller, I kind of had to tear them up a little bit just to kind of get it to go up the sides. I'm also taking some of my smoked cheddar cheese and just getting it grated up because we're going to put this on top of everything. Once your ground beef is all cooked, you are going to to add 2 tablespoons of a taco seasoning, and then you're going to add 3/4 cup of a thick and chunky salsa. I just used a whole pint of my salsa. I realized once I started making it that mine wasn't a thick and chunky, mine was more runny. So I just dumped the whole thing in because I need to get salsa used. If you've seen my pantry tour, I actually mentioned how I needed to find recipes to use salsa. So I was really happy to find this one. So this is kind of where I went away from the recipe. It doesn't say anything about adding anything after that point. I decided to add some olives that I had in the fridge that I needed to get used, and also some jalapeno peppers. Definitely recommend adding something like that to it, or you could even add onions if you had them. So once that is all cooked through and the salsa is kind of reduced down a little bit, you're going to take that cooked mixture and just put it into that uncooked pie crust that you made with the crescent rolls. And then you are going to top this with about 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. I probably went way over 1 cup because I just love cheese. And then you are going to put this in the oven and cook it for about 14 to 17 minutes depending on your oven. You just want it to be a deep golden brown, and once the cheese is melted. It says this is really good to top with lettuce and tomatoes. We really enjoyed this recipe. I definitely would recommend it if you have leftover crescent rolls. An experiment that I'm going to be doing in the near future is actually making my own crescent rolls, so that would be good to use in this recipe. For the next meal, I am making one of our favorite meals. It is a creamy garlic sausage and spinach pasta. I am more than positive that I have probably already showed you guys how to make this one, but it is our favorite. And to be honest, I'm really running out of new ideas. And because this is our favorite, I really wanted to incorporate this. And I'm really trying to show you guys what we're realistically eating on the pantry challenge. And some nights we definitely have repeats, and especially repeats of our favorite meals. I do try to do at least 4 new meals a week, just keep things fresh and try to use stuff in my pantry that I don't normally use, but this one is such a good one. I need to have it on repeat. So what I'm doing is taking 1 pound of ground sausage. I'm just using a mild Italian sausage, and I'm just getting that cooked up. What I realized after I had gotten all the sausage cooked up was that I needed to make my pasta first, because you have to add cooked pasta to it. So I just took some bow tie pasta and just got them cooked up in the background there, and now I'm just rinsing them and just putting them aside. So you're going to take 1/4 cup of butter and just melt it in that sausage that you just pre-cooked. The other thing that I was doing with the paper towel was I was actually dabbing out some of the grease off of the sausage, because this was a pretty greasy one, and you don't want to have any of that. And in fact, the recipe does recommend that you take a paper towel and dab out some of the fat in it. So then I'm going to take 1.5 cups of heavy cream, 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, and 5 ounces of spinach. I have definitely used frozen kale in this, and it is really good with the kale. I have a whole bunch of frozen spinach in my freezer that I need to get used, so that's what we're going to use for this one. After you add the pasta, you want to cook it for about 3 minutes, just until it is good and heated through. Now the next stage, I completely forgot to turn the camera on. We had somebody here this particular night, and I got busy talking to her in the background, and I completely forgot to turn the camera on and show you all of the steps. I even forgot to turn the camera on to show you what it looked like when it was finally done. But this is what it looks like after you add the pasta, and you also want to come in and add 1 cup of grated Parmesan cheese to it, and then serve it hot. I came in and added a little bit of extra heavy whipping cream and a tad bit more salt, just because we like it more saucy than what it was already in there. But this is it, and it was delicious. For the next meal, we are going to do a sweet treat. So on last Wednesday's video, I mentioned that I was going to be making some overnight cinnamon rolls. Here is the recipe. So to make these cinnamon rolls, what you want to do is start with 1 cup of whole milk and 1/2 cup of water, and you just want to put that into a glass measuring cup and put it in the microwave for about 45 seconds. And then after 45 seconds, you are going to stir in 2.5 teaspoons of an active dry yeast and 2 teaspoons of sugar. You want to set that aside just to bloom. It usually takes about 5 minutes for that to happen. So after that is completely bloomed, in the bowl of a stand mixer, you want to add 5.5, and it even says up to 6 cups of an all-purpose flour. And then you're going to add 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, 3 teaspoons of salt, 1/3 cup of an unsalted butter melted. I used regular salted butter and it tasted perfectly fine. And then you're going to add 1 egg and then 1 tablespoon tablespoon of vanilla extract. You want to knead that on medium speed for about 3 to 5 minutes or until the dough starts to form. If the dough seems a little bit sticky, then it says at that point you can come in and add 3/4 cup more of flour. And then what you want to do is just mix it again until all the sides are pulling away from the mixer. I took a large bowl and just lightly oiled it with some avocado oil. You're going to remove the dough from your stand mixer. I was just kind of making it into a ball, and then I'm going to rub it around in the oil, and I'm going to cover this, and I'm going to allow it to rise until it's doubled in size. It usually takes about an hour and a half depending on the temperature in your home. After the dough is risen, you just want to take a small bowl and mix together 1 1/4 cup of brown sugar and 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, and just mix it until everything is combined. And then you're going to get your dough, and you're going to do the best part of all, which is deflating the dough. I love this part of making any type of baked good. So once it's deflated, you are going to take it and put it on a well-floured surface, and you want to roll it out into a large triangle. Once you get it shaped to what you want it to be shaped at, it's going to be fairly large. You're going to brush it with approximately 1/2 cup or 1 stick of butter. It recommends that the butter be very soft at room temperature, or it even says semi-melted. So I had to throw mine in the microwave for a minute because it was really cold. And so mine was, I'm going to call that semi-melted. So you're just going to brush it all over the top of the dough there. Once you get that done, you're going to take your sugar and cinnamon mixture, and you're just going to sprinkle that on top of the dough. And then what the recipe says is you're going to start rolling it into a tight, long cigar. Now, this particular vlogger, she actually has a video showing how she makes these. I will leave the blog linked for you guys, like the recipe, and you can actually click on the recipe and see how she makes it, because this is not my recipe. I'm just going off of hers, and it's a really, really good recipe. I've actually made these quite a bit, and they do turn out really, really, really good. So anyways, we're going to take that roll and we're going to cut it into approximately 20 good size rolls, and then you're going to place them in a buttered 9 by 13 baking dish, cover with some plastic wrap, and allow to rest at room temperature for approximately 20 minutes. And then it says after the 20 minutes, you're going to place that in the fridge overnight. So the next morning, you want to take these rolls out and let them come to room temperature for about an hour and 15 minutes before you bake them. Now, mine did not rise really good. My house was freezing this particular day, so they were kind of cold going into the oven, so they didn't get a super good rise on them, but they were still really good to eat. So we're going to make the icing that goes on top of it. What you need to do is take 4 ounces of cream cheese softened at room temperature, 2 tablespoons of butter softened at room temperature, and then you're going to mix that together and then add 2 cups of powdered sugar or icing sugar, 1 tablespoon of vanilla, and then about 4 to 5 tablespoons of a whole milk. I probably used about 3 tablespoons to get it to the texture that I wanted it to. You're just going to mix that all together, and then once you get those cinnamon rolls out of the oven, oh, and I forgot to tell you what you guys need to put it in at. You need to put it in a preheated oven at 350 degrees and bake them for 20 minutes. It also says look for the top to be nice and golden and for them to be completely cooked through. I had to actually put these in for probably about 30 minutes to get them completely cooked through. So once you get them out, you are going to top them with that cream cheese icing, and they're so good. So, so good. We've been eating them for dessert every single night. Just delicious. For the last meal on this video, we are going to make an Instapot meal. I have not been using my Instapot very much. I get burn errors and then I get frustrated and I put the Instapot away and just kind of leave it. So tonight we're going to attempt to do another Instapot meal. It is a Chicago-style Italian beef sandwich. So what I'm doing is taking approximately a 2.5 pound, it says well marbled beef chuck. It says you can also use a rump roast or a bottom roast in this if you would like. And we're just going to sprinkle it with some granulated garlic and then some salt and pepper, and we want to do that on both sides of it. You want to turn your Instapot to the saute feature, and it says to add it to the high heat or the more heat, and then you are going to add a little bit of oil into that Instapot, and you are going to brown the roast on all sides. While the roast was browning, I took a large onion and just cut it into lengthwise pieces so that they were really big and chunky. Then once everything was cut up, I took 1 pint of my beef broth. You want to use about 1.5 cups of beef broth. I just added the whole pint in. Then you want to add your cut up onion to the pot. The recipe also calls to use 1/2 cup of pickled peppercini peppers sliced. I just used my whole pint of them because this was another item on my pantry shelf that I had an excessive amount that I really needed to get used up. I actually ended up taking the roast out of the Instapot because there was a whole bunch of stuff stuck to the bottom of the Instapot pot, and I am so paranoid about getting the burn error, so I wanted to take the roast out and just kind of make sure that I was scraping the bottom just to avoid any errors. Next, you're going to add about 3 medium garlic cloves minced and 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. I actually freeze my tomato paste when I empty a 4-ounce jar because I never use the 4-ounce, so I just put it in a little Ziploc baggie, throw it in my freezer, and whenever I need it, I just snap a piece off that I need. It works perfect and it's zero waste. So you're going to also come in and add about 2 teaspoons of a dried Italian seasoning, and then what I was doing was just actually topping it up with a little bit of that brine from my pickled pepperoncinis, and I just found it made it a little bit more liquidy, which was really, really nice. So once you get everything in there, I added the roast back in. You are going to put the lid on, make sure the valve is in the sealing position. It does suggest to take the keep warm button off. I just leave it on so I can time the release at the end. And then you are going to put this in on high pressure and cook it for 1 hour and 20 minutes. When the time is up, you are going to naturally let this release for 20 minutes. After the 20 minutes, just pop the valve and slowly open the lid just to make sure that everything has already been released. It does say to transfer the roast to a cutting board and then tent it with a little bit of foil. My roast was fall apart, so I couldn't get the whole roast out. So I'm just kind of picking all of the parts out, and then I just put it onto a platter and just tented it again with some foil. So after you get the roast out of the Instapot, you are going to select a saute feature on it, and then you are going to adjust it to make sure that it is at high heat. You want to simmer that cooking liquid for about 10 minutes or until it reaches your desired thickness. It wasn't getting as thick as I really wanted it to, so I actually came in and added 1 teaspoon of arrowroot, and I took that arrowroot and just mixed it with a tad bit of water, and then I poured that mixture into the sauce just to get it to thicken up a little bit more. At this point, I was unsure of what to do with the components because the recipe just honestly says slice the meat, put it on the bread, and put some of the sauce over. But then Steven came in and he's like, oh no, that's not how you make Italian beef. He goes to this Italian deli in the town that he works in, and he says that this is how they do it. So he kind of took over the process, so you see some different hands here. So what we did was we sliced our bread up. Steven came in and put all of that beef onto the bread, and then we topped it with a little bit of our smoked cheddar cheese. Now, I was reading the recipe and it says to top it with a gardenia. We don't have any, which I'm actually going to be making this year because I love gardenias, and I don't know, for some reason I've never made them. It's just pretty much pickled vegetables combined together. Anyways, so he put the cheese on and we realized that we didn't have any of our other components on it. So for his sandwich, he added some pickled jalapenos, and then I came in and added some of my pickled red onions and a little bit of pickled green beans to them. I preheated the oven to 350 degrees. So once we got all of our components on, put the cheese back on, we put it in the oven for about 15 minutes. I was just looking for the cheese to get melted. So the next step, Steven said what they do at this deli is they take the sandwiches, they cut it in half, and they just submerge it in this au jus sauce. And I was like, well, that's going to be too messy. So what I chose to do with mine was just take the tops off, dump a little bit of sauce on it. After I did that, I realized that it's going to be messy anyways, so I ended up just taking the tops of my bread and just submersing them in to the liquid. Steven took his whole sandwich and just dunked it right into the liquid. This was definitely a sandwich that you needed to eat with a fork and knife because it was so messy, but it was so delicious. I'm really happy that I've got my Instapot back out. This is a really good recipe to try if you have an Instapot. You could probably do this in a Dutch oven as well and just kind of slow cook it through the day. So this is going to be the last meal on this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I gave you a little inspiration for your upcoming meals this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you are watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.